Chapter 4, The Art and Craft of Lecturing. In partial fulfillment for BS-NS 7851 Teaching Practicum, Anderson University Doctoral Program, Dr. Emmett Delaney. My name is Dan Sterkenburg. I'm a doctoral student in the 2010 cohort. Unless otherwise noted, most ideas and concepts are from the Chicago Handbook for Teachers, a practical guide to the college classroom, 2nd edition, Brinkley and other authors. The University of Chicago Press, Chicago, 2011. For more than 800 years, the lecture has existed as a way of teaching students. Books were scarce in the medieval times, and reading them to students was the best method of communicating these books to their notes. In fact, the word lecture means to read aloud. It only takes a moment to reflect on our own education, or what professors today use in the classroom, to realize that the lecture is not dead. Today, the college lecture is still the most common method of delivering material to students, even with the advent of modern technology. But perhaps the better question is, should the lecture die? Or is it still effective? In this lesson on the art and craft of lecturing, we will review its relevance and traits, and also learn how to prepare and deliver a lecture. Who can forget the long, dreary lectures where your mind wandered or even you passed out asleep? Has modern technology provided a substitute for the lecture? Or is it an archaic hand-me-down from 800 years of higher education, as some scholars such as Diana Laurillard feels? She believes the lecture is kept only because it is rooted in our culture. In fact, she is quoted in the 2011 article by Friesen to say that the lecture is a very unreliable way of transferring the lecturer's knowledge to the student's notes. Other experts argue that it is too passive and does not engage the student's mind. Well, is the lecture still effective? The Chicago Handbook for Teachers believes so and gives us 4 reasons that it's still used and effective. The first reason is economics. It remains the most efficient way of exposing a large group of students to a large amount of information. It is a force-feeding appointment that many students and teachers often resent, but have few alternatives. Left on our own, we're not likely to read the textbook and come away with the key points. It is also thematic. The lecture selects the theme or idea in the chapter to emphasize with the hearers. The speaker has pre-digested the material into a major theme or set of themes, like pablum, ready for the student to take directly to their brains. A lecture has also synthesis. The lecture helps students understand and synthesize the new information with information they've learned in the past. It also helps establish the validity and reality of the concepts through the use of examples woven through the lecture. And finally, chemistry. The lecture brings a certain chemistry and dramatic presence to the room. The Chicago Handbook states, lecturing puts the personality and the intellect of the teacher on display. It is, in a sense, a very personal kind of teaching. The written words become alive and interesting to the students. According to the 2011 Friesen article, modern technology and readily available information has not done away with the lecture. Rather, it has enhanced and changed the way presentations are made, making them even more effective. The lecture, with its oral roots, is complemented, augmented, and reconfigured through changes in textual technologies. An example of this is one of the more popular internet lecture forums called TED, which features different lectures on various topics. The most viewed lecture had over 7.5 million viewers. However, there's been a shift in the past century. The lecture has moved from the authority of the text to the authority of the lecturer. Today's lecturer must come across as the expert on the subject matter. And in the following sections, we will learn how to prepare and deliver a lecture. A good lecture is both art and craft. Preparing for a lecture takes focused time. This video clip is not how you should prepare for a lecture.
Not as exciting and not as productive. They don't look like they're helping you win. And that streak is the second longest in NFL history. So,
the best way to start is to understand the context of the chapter and the author's objectives. Read these as a framework for preparing your lecture. Often there's a question or a hypothesis that will help you select the important information. If it's your first time, you'll want to read, take notes, and organize the material. And even if you've already taught the material, you should reread and review. You may find highlighting or underlining useful while reading. I prefer to take notes using the textbook's outlines. This often proves to be a useful organization of the material and allows me to develop additional concepts and examples as I read. Be sure to note the interesting examples or cases used by the textbook for later discussion points or illustrations during your lecture. Also, jot down ideas and personal examples that are triggered while you are reading. I find that the 3M sticky notes work best to record these so I don't forget them. In preparing for the lecture, the basic ingredients of a lecture should include the question, argument, or hypothesis, the objectives you're trying to achieve, the main points, and then of course the content and examples you wish to convey. Finally, be sure to connect the previous chapter or concept to the current material that you are covering, and then at the end connect it to what is coming next. Well, what should you do on the actual day of the lecture? Some like to use their notes in a whiteboard, and others like to use PowerPoint slides. In either case, it is good to review the material before the actual day of the lecture. Now let's move to the delivery of the lecture. Lecturing is both art and craft. The following vignettes are examples of poor lecture deliveries. The first video is a first-time lecturer with a little experience. Observe with me some of the rookie mistakes and see how many you can identify.
Act 2, Scene 2, Take 2. Where the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is the act that makes it a violation of the United States law to bribe a foreign government official in order to obtain or maintain business over which the foreign official has authority. And it requires all publicly traded companies that are traded in that country to keep detailed records so that it is clear whether a violation of the act has occurred or not. In the United States, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act outlawed the practice of paying bribes to foreign government officials in order to gain business. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, also known as OECD, adopted a convention on combating bribery of foreign public officials in international business transactions in 1997, 20 years after the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which obliges member states to make the bribery of foreign public officials a criminal offense.
What did you observe? Lack of eye contact, use of only textbook material, reading verbatim the PowerPoint slides, no real expression, kind of stuck behind the lectern, and other things, I'm sure. The second video is a tenured professor who has lots of experience but has forgotten how to be relevant. Observe some of the mistakes and see how many you can identify.
Act 2, Scene 3, Take 1. Foreign Corrupt Practices Acts to talk about. Sometimes this is known as FCPA, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Anyway, I've been teaching this for many years, and well, I've seen so many changes go on, and the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act has become much more enforced. And I need a little coffee here. Anyway, let's see here.
What did you observe? A certain casual approach, a lack of good eye contact, no visual aids, unclear direction, not up to date, a lack of energy? When delivering the lecture, be aware of your body. Use movement and gestures. Your body is a teaching tool also. And be aware of your voice. Use inflection and pauses. Vary the tone and the pace. Delivering the lecture should reflect your own style. It can be flamboyant, fanciful, idiosyncratic, colorful, speculative, or even deliberate. Here's a good outline for delivering your next lecture. Review last lecture's main points and connect to today's lecture. Ask students if there are any questions or clarifications. Introduce the new material with a hypothesis, question, or objective. Then in the main body, use textbook material and outside information and personal information. Sprinkle it with videos, tables, charts, and stories, and ask questions or discuss with students. Encourage interaction with the material with in-class assignments. And finally, Use handouts for complex diagrams and charts, and conclude with the main points again. The key to a successful lecture is preparation and delivery. The lecture is here to stay. Technology has enhanced the ability of the speaker to convey with authority the information to the students. It's up to the professor to appropriately prepare and deliver the lecture in such a way that it engages the students' minds. A good lecture is both art and craft.